My name is William. I am 72 years old now. I have lived many years, but when I sit alone at night, everything comes back to me. Only a few special days remain vivid in my memory, days that shaped who I am. Tonight, I want to share that story, the moments that made me, me. I remember my father teaching me to walk on the street when I was just 5 years old. He held my hand tightly and said, "Don't be afraid. I am right here." I stumbled many times, I cried, but he never let me break down. He told me, "My dear boy, you will fall, but remember, every fall makes you stronger." My mother was the heart of our home. She wasn't rich. There were no gold coins or fancy clothes, but she had love in her hands. She cooked with care and sang soft songs before bedtime. Once, when I had a fever, she stayed awake all night, placing wet cloths on my forehead. She said, "Don't worry, you will get better." That night, I understood what a mother's love truly means. Once, my father gave me a small book, old, thin, and worn, but to me it was treasure. He said, "Read, my son. Books can show you worlds you can't buy with money." That day, I realized knowledge is power. My childhood was not about wealth, but about being close to those I loved. We played in the streets. We had no toys, so we used sticks and stones. We returned home before the sun set. My mother would give me bread, which tasted sweeter than any other food I ever had. Those small moments taught me that happiness comes not from things, but from life itself. When I was 7, I started going to school. Our village school was small, with wooden desks and blackboards that were often dusty. But to me, it felt like a palace. Every day was an adventure. I remember my first friend, Thomas. He was shy but always curious. We shared our lunches, ran through the fields, and dreamed about faraway cities we had never seen. Our laughter echoed across the village. School was not always easy. I struggled with reading at first. Letters would dance on the pages, and I would feel frustrated. But my teacher, Mr. Harris, would smile and say, "Patience, William. The mind grows stronger with every attempt." Those words stayed with me. One day, we had a small school competition. I was terrified. My hands shook, my heart raced. But Thomas whispered, "Just do your best. That's all that matters." I took a deep breath, and surprisingly, I did well. That moment taught me courage is born when fear is faced, not avoided. Even outside school, life was full of lessons. I learned to help neighbors, to care for animals, to share even when I had little. One winter, I gave my only scarf to a younger boy who had none. My mother scolded me for giving it away, but I didn't regret it. She later said, "Giving is a gift that never leaves you empty." As the years went by, I grew taller, my voice changed, and my dreams became bigger. I realized the world outside our village was vast, mysterious, and full of opportunities. But I also realized that no matter where life took me, those small streets, my parents' love, and my first friendships would always be a part of me. By the time I was 13, life started to feel more complicated. School was harder, friendships changed, and the small joys of childhood began to mix with bigger questions. Who am I? What do I want to become? I had a dream, one that often kept me awake at night. I wanted to write stories, to create worlds that others could live in, even if only for a few moments. I would sit under the old oak tree near our village pond, notebook in hand, scribbling ideas no one else could see. Some of my stories were messy, some funny, some sad, but all of them felt alive. But life had its challenges. My father wanted me to focus on practical work, not dreams. "Stories don't fill your stomach," he would say. It hurt to hear that, but I also understood he only wanted the best for me. I learned to hide my notebooks under my bed and write late at night when the house was quiet. School friends came and went. Thomas had moved to the city, and though we wrote letters, the gap grew. I made new friends, some who supported my dreams, others who teased me for being too lost in books. But I discovered something important. Not everyone's approval matters. What matters is staying true to yourself. One autumn afternoon, our teacher announced a writing contest. My heart raced. I entered, unsure of my skills. Weeks later, when my story won first place, I felt a rush of confidence I had never known. That moment was small, but it planted a seed. Maybe, just maybe, my dreams were worth chasing. Life outside school was teaching me lessons too. I learned responsibility, the pain of failure, the joy of small victories. I helped my mother with chores, my younger siblings with homework, and even earned a little money delivering letters in the village. Each day was a mix of struggles and small triumphs, shaping the person I was becoming. When I turned 16, an opportunity appeared that felt both thrilling and terrifying. A distant cousin living in the city offered to let me stay with him for a few months. "It's time you see the world beyond our village," he said. My heart leaped. The city was everything I had imagined, loud, fast, and full of possibilities. The first few days were overwhelming. Tall buildings replaced the trees I knew, honking cars replaced the chirping birds, and crowds replaced the familiar faces of neighbors. I felt small, almost invisible, but also excited. Every street corner, every market stall seemed to whisper stories waiting to be told. old. I found a small library near my cousin's home. It became my sanctuary. For hours, I read books about faraway lands, people who changed the world, and ordinary people who made extraordinary choices. Each book fed my imagination, pushing me to dream bigger. But city life wasn't easy. Money was tight, and my cousin's house was cramped. I took up small jobs, delivering newspapers, helping at a tea stall, to support myself and keep my focus on writing. Many nights I returned exhausted, yet I still wrote. Words became my escape, my comfort, my silent rebellion against fear. I also met people who challenged me. Some discouraged me, saying I wouldn't succeed, while others became friends who believed in my dreams. A young librarian, noticing my passion, gave me advice that stayed with me. Talent is only the beginning. Persistence is everything. The months in the city transformed me. I learned independence, the value of hard work, and the courage to keep going when everything seemed against me. By the time I returned to the village, I was no longer just a dreamer under an oak tree. I was someone beginning to understand the effort it takes to turn dreams into reality. Back in the village, I continued writing, but now with a new fire inside me. Every story I wrote, every line I crafted, carried the lessons of the city, the hustle, the struggle, and the courage I had gained. One evening, I submitted a short story to a local magazine. I didn't expect much. Rejection had become a familiar companion. But weeks later, I received a letter. My story had been published. The feeling was indescribable, a mix of pride, disbelief, and a growing hunger to do more. Neighbors and friends who once doubted me now looked at me with curiosity. Some congratulated me, others asked how I did it. But the most important thing was how I felt about myself. For the first time, I realized talent alone isn't enough. Persistence, patience, and courage are what turn dreams into reality. The recognition opened doors. A small publisher reached out, offering to publish a collection of my short stories. The offer seemed surreal, yet I knew this was only the beginning. Writing had given me purpose, but it also demanded sacrifices. Nights became longer, mornings earlier, and every moment outside writing felt like lost opportunity. Through this journey, I also discovered something crucial. Failure is not the opposite of success. It is part of it. Every rejected story, every harsh critique, every moment of doubt built resilience. I learned to embrace challenges as stepping stones rather than obstacles. By the time the first book was ready for printing, I realized something profound. My journey had just begun, and the world beyond the village, once intimidating and distant, now felt like a canvas waiting for my stories. With the first book printed, excitement ran through me like electricity. But the world outside the village was not all applause and smiles. Critics began to review my work. Some praised it, others dismissed it as inexperienced. At first, the negative words cut deep. I questioned myself. Was I truly ready for this journey? But then I remembered the countless nights I spent writing under the dim light of a lantern, the endless rejections, and the moments when I almost gave up. Those memories became my shield. Every critique became a lesson, every doubt a spark to push harder. The publisher offered me a contract for a second book, but this time the expectations were higher. The pressure was immense. I had to prove that my first success wasn't a fluke. Sleepless nights became my companion again. Ideas clashed, words felt heavy, and the fear of failure loomed large. One night, sitting by the window as rain poured, I realized something important. Fear is inevitable, but letting it control you is optional. I picked up my pen, wrote without judgment, without fear, letting the story flow like a river untamed. That night, the first chapter of my second book came alive. As weeks turned into months, the manuscript grew. I faced self-doubt, writer's block, and the constant worry that people might not like it. Yet every struggle strengthened my resolve. I learned that the path to greatness is rarely smooth. It is a mix of patience, courage, and relentless effort. Back in the village, I continued writing, but now with a new fire inside me. Every story I wrote, every line I crafted, carried the lessons of the city, the hustle, the struggle, and the courage I had gained. One evening, I submitted a short story to a local magazine. I didn't expect much. Rejection had become a familiar companion. But weeks later, I received a letter. My story had been published. The feeling was indescribable, a mix of pride, disbelief, and a growing hunger to do more. Neighbors and friends who once doubted me now looked at me with curiosity. Some congratulated me, others asked how I did it. But the most important thing was how I felt about myself. For the first time, I realized talent alone isn't enough. Persistence, patience, and courage are what turn dreams into reality. The recognition opened doors. A small publisher reached out, offering to publish a collection of my short stories. The offer seemed surreal, yet I knew this was only the beginning. Writing had given me purpose, but it also demanded sacrifices. Nights became longer, mornings earlier, and every moment outside writing felt like lost opportunity. Through this journey, I also discovered something crucial. Failure is not the opposite of success. It is part of it. Every rejected story, every harsh critique, every moment of doubt built resilience. I learned to embrace challenges as stepping stones rather than obstacles. By the time the first book was ready for printing, I realized something profound. My journey had just begun, and the world beyond the village, once intimidating and distant, now felt like a canvas waiting for my stories. With the first book printed, excitement ran through me like electricity. But the world outside the village was not all applause and smiles. Critics began to review my work. Some praised it, others dismissed it as inexperienced. At first, the negative words cut deep. I questioned myself. Was I truly ready for this journey? But then I remembered the countless nights I spent writing under the dim light of a lantern, the endless rejections, and the moments when I almost gave up. Those memories became my shield. Every critique became a lesson, every doubt a spark to push harder. The publisher offered me a contract for a second book, but this time the expectations were higher. The pressure was immense. I had to prove that my first success wasn't a fluke. Sleepless nights became my companion again. Ideas clashed, words felt heavy, and the fear of failure loomed large. One night, sitting by the window as rain poured, I realized something important. Fear is inevitable, but letting it control you is optional. I picked up my pen, wrote without judgment, without fear, letting the story flow like a river untamed. That night, the first chapter of my second book came alive. As weeks turned into months, the manuscript grew. I faced self-doubt, writer's block, and the constant worry that people might not like it. Yet, every struggle strengthened my resolve. I learned that the path to greatness is rarely smooth. It is a mix of patience, courage, and relentless effort. By the time the second book was ready for publication, I understood a truth I would carry forever. Success is not about never failing. It's about rising each time you fall, about turning every challenge into a stepping stone. After the second book's release, word began to spread beyond my small village. Emails arrived from readers in distant cities, then from other countries. They wrote in languages I barely understood, yet the emotions were universal: admiration, curiosity, and inspiration. One day, a message came from a renowned international publisher. They wanted to translate my books and share them with readers across the globe. My heart raced. This was the dream I had carried silently for years. But along with excitement came fear. Was my story truly relatable to the world? Would my words resonate in a different culture, different language? I agreed to collaborate, and soon I was speaking with translators, editors, and literary agents from across continents. Each meeting was a lesson in humility and patience. I learned to explain my ideas clearly, to adapt without losing the soul of my story. The first international edition of my book was released. On the launch day, I saw messages from readers in New York, Tokyo, Paris, and Lagos. They shared how the story touched their hearts, how it made them laugh, cry, and dream. Tears welled up in my eyes. The world, vast and intimidating, felt just a little smaller that day. Yet the journey was far from over. With global recognition came global expectations. Critics from around the world scrutinized my work. Some loved it, some misunderstood it, and some openly challenged it. The pressure grew, yet I realized something crucial. Every new voice, whether critical or appreciative, was part of the journey. I began traveling, first to neighboring countries, then across continents, to meet readers, give talks, and share the message behind my story. Airports, hotel rooms, and stages became my new writing spaces. Amidst this whirlwind, I kept a small notebook with me, capturing fleeting ideas, fleeting conversations, and fleeting dreams. These notes would one day become the heart of my next book. Through this journey, I discovered a truth that changed my life. Stories do not belong to one place, one culture, or one language. They belong to anyone willing to listen, anyone willing to feel. And as long as I kept writing, my stories would travel, touching lives I might never meet, yet connecting with hearts universally. Even as my books reached distant corners of the world, not everything was smooth. The higher I climbed, the more shadows followed me. Critics dissected my every word, sometimes misunderstanding the heart behind them. Some readers expected perfection, some questioned my motives, and others compared me harshly to established authors. Late at night, in quiet hotel rooms, I would sit by the window, staring at the city lights and wondering if I was truly worthy of the attention. Doubts whispered, maybe you're not enough. Maybe this is luck, not talent. But every morning, I remembered the letters from readers, children who felt courage because of my words, adults who found solace in my stories. Their belief in me was stronger than any criticism. Slowly, I learned that doubt was not an enemy, but a teacher. It reminded me to stay humble, to keep improving, and to never stop listening to the world. During one of my international tours, I met a young writer in a small cafe in Rome. She was shy, clutching a notebook filled with scribbled ideas. She told me she dreamed of writing, but feared failure. I smiled and shared my own story, the nights of doubt, the rejection letters, the fear of being misunderstood. By the end of our conversation, she had a spark in her eyes, a determination to write no matter what. That encounter made me realize that success was not just about recognition or fame. It was about inspiring others to believe in themselves, to find their own voice. It was about lighting a candle, knowing that it could help someone else find their path through darkness. Yet, the journey ahead was still uncertain. Every country I visited, every stage I stood on, brought new challenges, cultural differences, language barriers, and expectations heavier than ever. But each challenge strengthened me, molding me into a storyteller who was not only heard, but deeply felt. And through it all, I never stopped writing. Because in every story I told, I discovered a piece of myself, a fragment of the world, and a connection that transcended borders. Months passed, and my journey took me to continents I had only dreamed of visiting. Asia was a revelation. The bustling streets, the aroma of street food, and the hum of millions of lives intersecting in chaotic harmony. Everywhere I went, people welcomed me with curiosity and warmth, eager to hear stories from faraway lands. The plaza trembled beneath my feet, and the shadows around me seemed to stretch and twist, forming shapes that were almost human but not quite. From the corners of the square, statues of warriors, animals, and mythical creatures began to move, stone cracking, wings stretching, eyes glowing. The hidden city wasn't just alive, it was testing me. The woman who had appeared earlier stepped closer. "These are the guardians," she said. "Each one holds a challenge, and each one will try to deceive you. Only by trusting your instincts and courage can you survive." A massive lion-like guardian with silver fur and piercing blue eyes approached first. Its roar shook the air, and I felt an invisible force trying to push me back. I remembered the lessons from my journey, the patience, the careful observation, the quiet strength, and I stood my ground. Slowly, I moved toward it, avoiding sudden movements, until it circled me and then bowed. I had passed the first trial. Before I could catch my breath, the next guardian appeared, a shadowy figure with multiple arms, each holding a different weapon. It lunged at me, faster than I could react. I ducked, dodged, and rolled, relying not on strength but on intuition and timing. As I finally sidestepped its final strike, the figure dissolved into mist, leaving behind a small glowing orb. I picked it up. It hummed softly, as if acknowledging my success. The woman smiled faintly. "You are proving yourself, but the hardest trial is yet to come. Beyond this plaza lies the Labyrinth of Echoes. Many seekers enter, but few return." I glanced toward the shadowed path leading out of the plaza. Twisting corridors of stone and crystal stretched into darkness, and faint whispers drifted through the air. The labyrinth was alive, aware of my every thought and fear. My heart pounded, but I knew there was no turning back. I stepped forward, clutching the glowing orb. Every sound in the labyrinth echoed unnaturally, making it hard to distinguish reality from illusion. I could see fleeting glimpses of the city's past, shapes of people, moments frozen in time, some smiling, some in despair. Every step felt like walking through a dream, yet I pressed on, determined to uncover the city's ultimate secret. The moment I stepped into the Labyrinth of Echoes, the air changed. It felt heavier, thicker, as if each breath carried the weight of centuries. The walls shimmered faintly, covered in strange, twisting runes that pulsed in rhythm with my heartbeat. Every step I took echoed louder than it should, bouncing back with whispers that seemed almost alive. At first, the path seemed straightforward. But soon, the corridors twisted unnaturally, looping back on themselves. I realized that the labyrinth wasn't just physical. It was alive, reading my mind, sensing my fears. Shadows shifted at the edge of my vision, sometimes forming figures I recognized, sometimes grotesque creatures born of nightmare. A voice echoed through the halls, soft and melodic, almost hypnotic. "Why are you here? Are you ready to face your truth?"